3 weeks after Marcus Chun's impossible victory in the galactic combat arena, the celebration aboard the human diplomatic vessel Endeavour came to an abrupt end when proximity alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Ambassador Santos rushed to the bridge, where her tactical officer was staring at sensor displays with growing alarm. "Ma'am, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walsh, her voice tight with tension. "Configuration matches hegemony dreadnoughts. 14 ships and counting." The hegemony. Santos felt ice form in her stomach at the name. During their brief time in galactic society, humanity had learned about the hegemony's reputation as conquerors, who viewed any emerging warrior species as a direct threat to their dominance. They had crushed dozens of civilizations throughout galactic history, always striking before new powers could fully establish themselves. Distance and approach vector? 80,000 kilometers and closing. Their weapons are already charging, Ambassador. This isn't a diplomatic visit. On the main screen, the sleek predatory shapes of hegemony warships formed a perfect attack formation as they approached. Zarian Prime, each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering. Armed with quantum disruptors capable of cracking planets and shielded by energy fields that could withstand direct hits from stellar cores, Marcus Chin had been in the ship's training bay when the alarm sounded. He arrived on the bridge still wearing his exercise gear, but his demeanor had shifted from the calm diplomat to something far more dangerous. His dark eyes assessed the tactical situation with the same calculating precision he had shown in the arena. "Hostile capabilities?" he asked Lieutenant Commander Walsh. "Each dreadnought carries approximately 3,000 troops, advanced power armor, and enough firepower to glass a continent. Intelligence estimates suggest they're here to make an example of humanity before we can establish formal galactic relations." Ambassador Santos opened a communication channel to Zarian Prime's Defense Command. Commander Zixtela image appeared on screen, his 4 eyes reflecting the panic spreading through the galactic capital. "Ambassador Santos, you must evacuate immediately," he said without preamble. "Hegemony forces have been detected approaching the system. Our combined fleets are mobilizing, but we cannot guarantee your safety. What about the civilian population on Zarian Prime? Planetary shields are being raised, but against hegemony firepower, Zixtela's mandibles clicked nervously. "We will do what we can." Marcus stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. "Commander, what's the estimated response time for your main battle fleets?" 6 hours minimum. The hegemony will reach effective weapons range in 40 minutes. The math was simple and brutal. Zarian Prime's local defense forces, while substantial, were no match for 14 hegemony dreadnoughts. The planet would be defenseless for over 5 hours, more than enough time for the invaders to accomplish their goals of destroying both the human delegation and demonstrating their continued supremacy. "Ambassador," Marcus said quietly, "request permission to assist in the planet's defense." Santos stared at him in disbelief. "Marcus, we have one small diplomatic vessel against 14 dreadnoughts. What exactly do you think we can accomplish?" Instead of answering directly, Marcus activated his personal communicator. "Endeavor to all human vessels in system. This is SEAL Team 6. Execute Operation Deep Strike. Authorization code Semper Fidelis." Throughout the Zarian system, seemingly innocent cargo ships and research vessels began to transform. Hidden weapon ports opened, revealing advanced human military technology that had been carefully concealed during their diplomatic mission. Sleek fighters launched from disguised bays while larger vessels dropped their false hulls to reveal the lean, predatory shapes of human warships. "Commander." Zixtela's 4 eyes widened in shock as his sensors detected the sudden appearance of 47 human military vessels where moments before there had been only 8 civilian craft. "Ambassador, what is the meaning of this?" Ambassador Santos smiled grimly. "Commander, meet the Human Defense Initiative's Rapid Response Fleet. We never travel anywhere without adequate protection. The lead hegemony dreadnought, Subjugator of Worlds, commanded by Supreme Admiral Vexgar, detected the human ships with contemptuous amusement. In his experience, newly discovered species always attempted desperate last stands when faced with hegemony might. It made their eventual subjugation more satisfying. "Primitive vessels detected," reported his tactical officer. "Configuration unknown, but energy signatures suggest inferior technology." "Excellent!" Admiral Vexkar's voice carried the satisfaction of a predator cornering prey. "Destroy them quickly. Then we proceed with the planetary bombardment as planned." The hegemony fleet adjusted course to engage the human formation, confident that this would be nothing more than a brief delay before their main objective. 14 massive dreadnoughts against 47 unknown craft seemed like acceptable odds. Even accounting for the humans' demonstrated individual combat skills, Marcus had transferred to the human flagship Constitution along with Ambassador Santos. The bridge crew moved with the fluid efficiency of veterans who had trained together for years. Unlike the grand ceremonial bridges of galactic warships, the Constitution's command center was purely functional, every surface optimized for combat effectiveness. "Admiral Chun," the ship's captain said formally, "all vessels report ready for engagement." "Admiral." Santos realized she was seeing yet another layer of the careful deception humanity had maintained throughout their first contact with galactic civilization. Marcus Chun wasn't just a Navy SEAL, he was the commanding officer of humanity's most advanced military force. "Tactical assessment, Captain Rodriguez?" Marcus asked, studying the holographic display showing both fleets' positions. "Hegemony dreadnoughts are heavily armored and shielded, but their formations are predictable. They're accustomed to fighting opponents who match their technological approach. I don't think they're prepared for asymmetric warfare." Marcus nodded grimly. "Initiate Hunter Protocol. All ships, weapons free. Priority targets are their shield generators and command structures." The human fleet spread out in a formation that defied conventional military doctrine. Instead of the standard battle line used by galactic navies, they formed loose, fast-moving groups that approached the hegemony formation from multiple vectors. Simultaneously, Admiral Vexkar watched the approaching ships with growing puzzlement. Their tactical formation made no sense according to established military principles. They were too spread out to provide mutual support, yet moving too quickly for effective long-range targeting. "Open fire," he commanded. "Destroy these primitives." 14 dreadnoughts unleashed devastating volleys of quantum disruptor fire. The energy beams were powerful enough to vaporize most known starship hulls instantly. Space lit up with brilliant destructive energy as the hegemony demonstrated why they were feared throughout the galaxy, but the human ships weren't, where the targeting computers expected them to be, using engine technology that the hegemony had never encountered. The human vessels executed impossible maneuvers that seemed to violate several physical laws. They twisted through space like living creatures, avoiding the devastating weapons fire through pure agility and unpredictable movement patterns. "Impossible," breathed the hegemony tactical officer. "Their acceleration curves exceed theoretical maximums for vessels of that size." Before Admiral Vexkar could respond, the human counterattack began. The human ships didn't engage in the traditional exchange of long-range fire that characterized galactic warfare. Instead, they closed to point-blank range with terrifying speed, their weapons targeting specific systems rather than attempting to destroy entire ships. "Shields down on Dreadnought 7, reported the hegemony sensor officer, panic creeping into his voice. "Engine failure on Dreadnought 3. Command deck hit on Dreadnought 11. The human weapons were unlike anything in galactic arsenals. Instead of raw destructive power, they used precision and intelligence. Quantum torpedoes that could navigate around shields to strike critical systems. Energy beams that disrupted electronic systems without necessarily destroying them. Kinetic weapons that delivered their payloads with surgical accuracy. Within 10 minutes of engagement, the mighty hegemony fleet found itself crippled. Not destroyed. The humans could have annihilated them completely, but rendered helpless through systematic targeting of their critical systems." "Admiral." Vexkar stared at his status displays in disbelief. His invincible dreadnoughts were dead in space, their weapons offline, their shields down, their engines destroyed. Yet their life support remained intact, their crew alive but completely defenseless. Marcus's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional despite the impossible victory he had just achieved. Admiral Vexkar, this is Admiral Chun of the Human Defense Initiative. Your fleet is disabled but intact. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the galactic rules of warfare. Refuse, and we will be forced to take more permanent measures. This is impossible, Vexkar managed. No species has ever defeated a hegemony fleet. How did you? Admiral, humanity has been fighting wars for 5,000 years. We've learned a few things about asymmetric tactics, precision tar. 20 minutes into the combat that was supposed to last 5, Karthok the Destroyer could barely stand upright. The massive apex beast swayed on its legs, 3 of its 4 arms hanging useless at its sides after Marcus had systematically destroyed the nerve clusters controlling them. Its once brilliant bioluminescent spines now flickered, weakly between orange and purple, colors that indicated severe distress and impending system failure. The crowd had transformed from bloodthirsty spectators to silent witnesses of something unprecedented. Even the most experienced galactic warriors among them had never seen an apex beast so thoroughly dominated. In floating pods throughout the arena, military commanders frantically took notes while xenobiologists struggled to understand how a human could possess such intimate knowledge of apex beast anatomy. Marcus circled his massive opponent with the patience of a hunter who knew that kill was inevitable. His shoulder wound had stopped bleeding, clotting with the efficiency that characterized human physiology. To the amazement of the medical observers, the injury seemed to have sharpened rather than dulled his focus. The SEAL's eyes remained fixed on the beast, calculating his next move with the precision of a computer. Commander Zixtela found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about warfare. His 4 eyes tracked the human's movements, trying to understand the fighting system being displayed. It bore no resemblance to any galactic combat art he had studied. Where most warrior species relied on superior strength, advanced technology, or natural weapons, this human seemed to use pure knowledge as his primary armament. Impossible, whispered General Kevrock of the Andromedan War Council from a nearby pod. His chitinous exoskeleton clicked nervously as he watched the human work. The creature should have torn him apart within seconds. Its claws can slice through battle tank armor, yet they have not touched him, observed Admiral Thesara of the Centaurian fleet. Her tentacles writhed with agitation as she spoke. This human moves as if he can predict every attack before it happens. Down in the arena, Karthok attempted one final desperate assault. The beast gathered its remaining strength and lunged forward with its functioning arm extended, claws aimed directly at Marcus's chest. The attack came faster than the creature had moved all day. Powered by the last reserves of its considerable strength, Marcus didn't dodge. Instead, he stepped into the attack, his hands moving faster than most observers could follow. He caught the creature's massive wrist in both hands, his fingers finding specific pressure points along the joint. With a swift, twisting motion that utilized the beast's own momentum, he redirected the entire force of the attack. The arena shook as 12 feet of apex beast crashed into the reinforced floor with bone-crushing impact. Karthok's own claws, driven by its redirected attack, punctured deep into its armored hide. The creature's roar of pain echoed through the dome, but it was noticeably weaker than before. What happened next would be discussed in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. Marcus placed one hand on the beast's massive skull and began applying pressure to specific points around its temples and the base of its neck. The technique appeared almost gentle compared to the violence that had preceded it, but its effects were immediate and devastating. Karthok's struggling grew weaker, its massive body going limp as the SEAL's fingers found nerve clusters that controlled the creature's consciousness. "He's putting it to sleep," breathed Dr. Velinari, the arena's chief medical officer, her voice carrying clearly through the observation pod's communication system. Without drugs, without technology, using nothing but anatomical knowledge and pressure point manipulation. Within 30 seconds, the mighty apex beast was unconscious, its chest rising and falling in the deep rhythm of enforced slumber. The creature that could have torn through a squad of galactic marines lay helpless beneath the hands of a single human warrior. The arena fell into absolute silence. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy stared at the impossible scene below. Marcus Chen stood calmly beside his defeated opponent, checking his own minor injuries with professional detachment. He showed no signs of exhaustion despite having spent nearly half an hour in combat with one of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Ambassador Santos rose from her seat in the diplomatic section, her expression carefully neutral despite the overwhelming vindication she felt. Around her, alien diplomats who had been joking about human weakness just an hour before now stared at her with new respect and no small amount of fear. "Ladies and gentlemen of the council," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence, "I believe this demonstration adequately addresses your questions about human combat capabilities." In the arena control booth, the match officials struggled with an unprecedented situation. The computerized systems had been programmed for various combat outcomes, but none of their scenarios had accounted for an apex beast being rendered unconscious by bare-handed techniques. The AI that managed arena functions had actually stopped announcing updates after the 15-minute mark, its programming unable to process what it was witnessing. Commander Zixthala activated his pod's communication system and descended toward the arena floor. As the ranking military observer, it was his responsibility to formally end the match and assess the results. His 4 eyes remained fixed on the human as his pod settled near the combat zone. "Warrior Marcus Chun," he said, his voice carrying the formal tone required by arena protocols, "you have achieved victory against Karthok the Destroyer. This result is unprecedented in galactic records." Marcus looked up at the Rigelian commander with calm, dark eyes. "Thank you, sir. Will the beast recover fully from its injuries?" The question caught Zixthala completely off guard. In all his years of arena observation, no warrior had ever inquired about their opponent's well-being after achieving victory. Most species viewed defeated enemies as beneath consideration, especially apex beasts that were traditionally considered mindless killing machines. "The medical staff will ensure its complete recovery," Zixthala replied, studying the human's face for any sign of deception or weakness. He found neither. The concern appeared genuine, which raised even more questions. About these strange beings. Dr. Velinari's voice crackled through the communication system as her medical team performed emergency scans on the unconscious apex beast. "Commander, preliminary analysis shows the creature has suffered no permanent damage. The human's techniques induce temporary nervous system disruption without causing lasting harm. It's remarkably precise work." Marcus nodded with apparent satisfaction. Navy SEALs are trained to neutralize threats with minimum necessary force. Killing should always be the last resort, even against hostile creatures. These words sent ripples of shock through the observing crowd. The concept of showing restraint against an apex beast seemed alien to most galactic species. These creatures were universally feared and destroyed on sight throughout civilized space. Yet this human spoke of them as if they deserved consideration and mercy. General Kavrakas' voice boomed from his observation pod. "Human, explain your combat techniques. How did you acquire such detailed knowledge of apex beast anatomy?" Marcus looked up at the Andromedan general with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the entire combat. "We study our enemies, sir. Understanding biology, psychology, and behavior patterns is fundamental to effective warfare. Every creature has weaknesses if you know where to look. But apex beasts are among the galaxy's most dangerous predators," protested Admiral Dasara. "Their anatomy is classified military information in most systems. How could a primitive species possess such detailed knowledge?" For the first time since the combat began, Marcus smiled. It was not the expression of arrogance or superiority that most victorious warriors displayed. Instead, it carried a hint of something that made several observers unconsciously step back from their viewing screens. Admiral, with respect, we humans have been studying predators for millions of years. On our world, we didn't start at the top of the food chain. We fought our way there, learning from every creature that tried to kill us. When you've spent your evolutionary history dealing with everything from saber-toothed cats to great white sharks, an apex beast is just another puzzle to solve. Ambassador Santos watched the growing unease among the galactic observers with professional satisfaction. She had hoped the demonstration would prove human combat worthiness, but Marcus had exceeded even her expectations. He hadn't just survived or even won, he had fundamentally challenged the galaxy's understanding of what warfare could be. Commander Zixtala found himself reassessing every assumption he had made about these newcomers. If a single human could dominate an apex beast using nothing but knowledge and technique, what could an entire military force accomplish? More importantly, what other capabilities were they hiding behind their deceptively primitive appearance? The Council of Worlds will convene immediately to discuss full diplomatic recognition for humanity, he announced formally. This demonstration has proven that your species possesses warrior capabilities worthy of galactic respect. Marcus inclined his head respectfully. Thank you, Commander. I hope this marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our peoples. As medical teams, the galactic combat arena stretched across 3 miles of crystalline dome, its transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of the twin suns of Zarian Prime. Inside, creatures from 100 different worlds gathered in floating observation pods, their excited chatter creating a symphony of alien languages that echoed through the massive structure. Commander Zixtala of the Regelian Star Fleet adjusted his ceremonial armor as he floated in his command pod, watching the preparations below. His 4 eyes tracked the movement of arena technicians as they performed final checks on the containment fields. Today marked the most significant event in galactic combat history, the first time a species from the Outer Rim would face an apex beast in single combat. The humans had been discovered only 6 months ago, a primitive species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their small delegation had arrived on Zarian Prime with outdated ships and crude weapons, yet they claimed to be warriors worthy of galactic recognition. The Council of Worlds had laughed at their request to participate in the arena championships. Humans were soft, pink creatures with no natural armor, claws, or enhanced strength. They seemed more suited for farming than fighting, but the human ambassador, a stern woman named Catherine Santos, had been persistent. She spoke of her species' warrior tradition and demanded the right to prove themselves. The Council, seeing an opportunity for entertainment, had agreed to a single exhibition match. If the human survived more than 5 minutes against a juvenile apex beast, they would consider formal diplomatic relations. Down in the arena floor, a lone figure stood in the center of the combat zone. The human warrior was smaller than Zixtala had expected, standing perhaps 6 feet tall with a lean but muscled build. His skin was deeply tanned, and strange markings covered his exposed arms, what humans called tattoos. Unlike the elaborate armor worn by most galactic warriors, the human wore simple black clothing and boots. No weapons were visible on his person. "Attention beings of the galaxy," announced the arena's AI voice in perfect universal standard. "Today we witness an unprecedented event. The human designated as Marcus Chun, claiming the title of Navy SEAL, will face Karthok the Destroyer in single combat." The crowd's excitement reached fever pitch. Karthok was a juvenile apex beast, standing 12 feet tall with obsidian scales that could deflect plasma fire. Its 4 arms ended in razor-sharp claws capable of slicing through starship hull plating. Twin rows of teeth filled its massive jaws, and bioluminescent patterns along its spine indicated its emotional state. Currently pulsing bright red with aggressive hunger. Ambassador Santos watched from the diplomatic viewing section, her face showing no emotion despite the impossible odds facing her representative. Several alien diplomats nearby whispered among themselves, placing bets on how quickly the human would be torn apart. In his pod, Zixtela felt a mixture of anticipation and pity. He had seen apex beasts in action before. Even experienced galactic marines with power armor and plasma weapons struggled against juvenile specimens. This human, with his primitive equipment and fragile biology, stood no chance. Still, there was something about the way the human moved, a fluid grace and controlled awareness, that intrigued the Rigelian commander. The arena's containment barriers hummed to life, creating an invisible wall that would prevent the apex beast from escaping while allowing spectators a clear view of the carnage to come. Karthok was released from its holding cage, immediately filling the arena with its bone-rattling roar. The creature's head swiveled toward the small human figure, and its bioluminescent spines flared brighter with predatory excitement. Marcus Chun stood perfectly still, his dark eyes studying the massive predator approaching him. His breathing remained steady and controlled, a stark contrast to the creature's aggressive display. The seal's hands hung loosely at his sides, but Zixtela noticed the human's weight was balanced on the balls of his feet, a combat stance. Though, unlike any the commander had seen before, Karthok charged without warning, its massive form covering ground with shocking speed. Each step shook the arena floor, and its claws extended to their full lethal length. The crowd gasped, expecting to see the human crushed or eviscerated within seconds. Instead, Marcus moved. The seal's motion was so swift that many spectators missed it entirely. One moment he stood directly in the beast's path. The next he had somehow rolled to the side, avoiding the creature's charge by mere inches. Karthok us momentarily past the human, and it crashed into the arena wall with enough force to crack the reinforced surface. The apex beast spun around, confusion replacing hunger in its primitive mind. The prey was supposed to run or cower, not disappear and reappear like a ghost. Karthok's spines flashed yellow, a sign of uncertainty that drew surprised murmurs from the crowd. Marcus began to circle the creature, his movements measured and patient. He showed no fear, no panic, only a calculated assessment of his opponent. The human's eyes tracked every detail of the beast's anatomy, noting the spacing between its scales, the flexibility of its joints, and the rhythm of its breathing. Karthok attempted another charge, this time swiping with all four arms in a pattern designed to catch any evasive movement. Again, Marcus seemed to anticipate the attack perfectly, dropping low and rolling beneath the creature's reach. As he passed under the beast, his hand briefly touched one of its legs, a movement so quick that most observers dismissed it as accidental contact. The apex beast stumbled slightly, surprised by the unexpected touch. In its confusion, it overextended its next swipe, creating an opening that Marcus immediately exploited. The seal moved in close, his hands striking specific points along the creature's leg with surgical precision. To the untrained eye, it looked like ineffective slapping against armored hide, but Zixtela had studied enough anatomy to recognize what was happening. The human was targeting nerve clusters and pressure points, using knowledge of biology that most galactic species had forgotten in favor of technological warfare. Each strike was placed with mathematical precision, designed to cause maximum disruption to the creature's nervous system. Karthok roared in frustration and pain as its left leg began to betray it, muscles spasming from the targeted attacks. The beast's bioluminescent spines shifted to orange, pain, and confusion. It had never encountered prey that fought back in such an incomprehensible manner. The crowd had fallen silent, their bloodthirsty cheers replaced by stunned observation. This was not the quick execution they had expected. The human was not just surviving, he was systematically dismantling a creature that should have been able to kill him with a single blow. Marcus continued his calculated assault, never allowing the beast to land a solid hit while gradually weakening its ability to fight. He used the creature's own momentum against it, redirecting charges into arena walls and causing Karthok to injure itself with its own aggressive movements. When the beast attempted to pin him with its massive bulk, the seal used techniques that seemed to defy physics, flowing like water around the attack and emerging unharmed. The most shocking moment came when Karthok managed to rake its claws across Marcus's shoulder, tearing through his simple clothing and drawing first blood. The crowd expected the injury to signal the beginning of the end, but the human's response defied all expectation. Instead of weakening, Marcus seemed to grow more focused. The sight of his own blood appeared to activate something primal within him, a controlled fury that made his movements even more precise and deadly. He began targeting the beast's sensory organs, striking at its eyes and the sensitive nerve endings around its skull with devastating accuracy. Karthok's roars became increasingly desperate as its vision blurred and its coordination failed. The proud apex beast, feared throughout the galaxy, was being systematically destroyed by a creature a fraction of its size and strength. The predator had become prey, and it knew it. Ambassador Santos allowed herself the slightest smile as she watched her representative prove what she had tried to tell the council: humans were not the weak primitives they appeared to be. Behind their fragile exterior lay something far more dangerous than claws or armor: intelligence, adaptability, and a warrior's heart that refused to surrender. In his observation pod, Commander Zixtela found himself leaning forward, completely absorbed by the impossible display below. His understanding of combat, of biology, of what constituted a warrior, was being fundamentally challenged by this small human's performance. The 5-minute mark passed unnoticed. Then 10 minutes. Karthok the Destroyer, juvenile though it was, continued to deteriorate under the SCAL's relentless assault. The arena, built to showcase the galaxy's mightiest warriors, had never witnessed anything quite like this methodical dismantling of an apex beast by a supposedly primitive alien, Marcus. Qian moved with the patience of a surgeon and the precision of a computer, each action calculated to bring him closer to an impossible victory. The crowd watched in growing amazement as their preconceptions about strength, about warfare, about the very nature of what made a warrior crumbled before their eyes. The human had not just survived his first 15 minutes against an apex beast, he was winning.